What's up with this new AMD processor that will be in the PlayStation 4?
Let's bring chip wars back to its roots. Let's talk APIs, parallel processing, serial processing, and chip architectures. In this 14th episode, I wanted to look at something a little different. I hope you don't mind. As some of you know, we've already talked about the Tegra 4, the Snapdragon 800, Apple's A6, the Exynos 5 Octa, and I'll soon cover Intel's mobile chip processor. But there's one chip company that is back in the spotlight with its design win in the upcoming PS4. AMD. The heart of any console is the processor, and AMD now has the chance to set the stage for how innovative console games and apps can be on the PS4 platform. AMD has been working on this new heterogeneous system-on-a-chip architecture since it acquired ATI, a PC graphics chip company over 6 years ago.
Hetero what? How does the chip architecture even matter?
Well, the architecture sets the software rules of a language that a gaming platform speaks. Platform owners, like Sony, usually benefit from a differentiated architecture that encourages developers to focus on games or features that will work best on their own proprietary platform. But sometimes this strategy backfires when the platform is so unique that it's really time-consuming to program for. See the PS3's PowerPC Cell platform. Now, when developers make a game, they would like to sell it to as many users as possible. They'd prefer an architecture that cuts down development time by making it easier to program and port their game to different platforms. So there's always been a tension between platform owners like Sony and game developers. With Sony's switch from the PowerPC to the x86 platform in the PS4, the company is gambling that developers will prefer to make great games with Sony's APIs, rather than wasting time trying to figure out a different architecture. Now, some video game platforms focus on graphics, which relies heavily on a specific architecture called parallel processing. The graphics processing unit specializes in rendering shapes and colors across millions of pixels simultaneously, or in parallel. But on top of that, future consoles also need to have a powerful serial processor architecture like CPUs to open up the platform to other types of software. The problem is that all these different functions rely on incompatible hardware architectures. The new AMD APU inside the PS4 addresses this problem with an architecture that combines the efficiency of parallel processing for graphics with the power of serial processing for other things.
I understand some of those words. What's an APU? And what's parallel processing versus serial processing?
We're about to get a little technical, but that's what Chip Wars is all about, and hopefully we'll all get a little more insight into the potential power of the PS4. First, it'll help to understand the different ways a CPU, a serial processor, and a GPU, a parallel processor, handle data. Let's pretend that the data is an actual book, and the job is to find a specific word in that book. A CPU is a serial processor that executes things in order, one thing at a time. The CPU always starts at page 1 and continues one page at a time until it finds the word you're looking for. Now granted, CPUs have gotten so powerful that most people don't notice the lag, but as performance increases, it requires a lot more power and produces more heat. That's why we don't see many 4 GHz serial processors. On the other hand, if the GPU, a parallel processor, had to find the same word in a book, it would first tear out each individual page and then scan them simultaneously, or in parallel. So even though clock speeds are relatively lower than CPUs, the GPU can actually complete certain tasks more efficiently using less power. Seeing the potential of this new, more efficient architecture, the market for parallel processors is growing fast, with NVIDIA's CUDA APIs leading the charge. Now, an APU, or Accelerated Processing Unit, is the latest computer architecture. It combines the CPU and GPU, and through certain APIs, it can boost performance without overheating. Basically, the PC chip industry has been boosting performance by moving away from single-threaded serial architectures to more heterogeneous architectures that combine serial processing with parallel processing. AMD saw the writing on the wall and paid $5.6 billion to quickly acquire ATI, the company that made the GPU for the Xbox 360 and the Nintendo Wii. You see, these 7th generation consoles have separate CPUs and GPUs. A controller would direct data to one of these two processors. The PS4's new APU combines these previously isolated computer chips so that data can flow more quickly to the right place and then ultimately to the screen. The secret sauce that makes heterogeneous processing so powerful are the APIs that help developers take advantage of all this innovation. NVIDIA was the first company to see the potential of parallel processing beyond just gaming. It introduced its own proprietary API for PCs back in 2006. But the tech giants didn't want NVIDIA to monopolize parallel processing, so the industry got together to manage and promote royalty-free parallel processing APIs, starting with OpenGL, and later, Apple even offered up what it was working on, the OpenCL API. Today for APIs, the three-way battle between NVIDIA's CUDA, Microsoft's DirectX 11, and OpenCL are paving the way for developers to write software that takes advantage of these latest heterogeneous hardware architectures. Future apps and games will harness the power of the CPU, GPU, and other processors from at least one of these software APIs. This is why if you're buying a flagship device today and you want to get the most out of it over the next 2 to 3 years, you should definitely check to see if it supports any of these APIs. Now, what does all this mean for the upcoming PS4, you might be wondering?
Yeah, I really want to know why the PS4 might not play my PS3 discs.
The PS4 speaks a different language than the PS3. Sony is making a trade-off. It's going with a new architecture completely, while ditching the old one. Because the new PS4 combines the performance of a CPU with the efficiency of a GPU, it shouldn't overheat, might not even need a noisy fan, but most importantly, it might attract more game developers who were frustrated with the complicated cell architecture of the PS3. AnandTech confirmed that the PS4 is based on AMD's Jaguar design, but with 8 cores, while the GPU clocks in at 1.84 teraflops. In the PS4, since both the CPU and GPU are neighbors, they now have access to a unified pool of system memory, boosting performance even more. And the 8GB of GDDR5 uses the same DDR3 SDRAM in modern gaming PCs today. This should be a relief to console developers, allowing them to do a lot more stuff with the GPU. So basically, the new PS4 is built on the innovations that have been going on in the PC chip industry, by combining both serial and parallel processing into a more efficient yet powerful single chip that is easier to develop games for. But again, the secret sauce lies in the APIs that Sony gives to developers. So stay tuned to the channel as I plan to post updates in the Gaming Wars series as we find out more information from Sony and Microsoft. And if you like the technical background information in Chip Wars, don't forget to thumbs up this video on your way out, and even better, send me some feedback in the comments below.